You're tuned into the show that informs, entertains, inspires, and promotes motorsports everywhere.
Welcome to Winning Wednesday on the Northwest Race Report.
Tonight's show is brought to you by
Miller Kitchen and Bath, Bailey General Contractors, Myers Floor Covering, Welch's Gun Shop, and Flaming Pig Barbecue.
And by the Wenatchee Valley Super Oval. And by Leonard Evans, Used Car Superstore. And by Product41.com, Atomic Screen Printing. And by BLG, Blue Line Graphics. Be unique, stand out, get noticed. www.blg.blue. And now, back to your horsepower performance hosts, Terry Bridges and Glenn Lippy Tower. Oh, what is going on, racers? Wouldn't you know it? I'm not seeing anything up there, so I'm going to have to go tune in to my Facebook right here so I can get some of the words. God, wouldn't you know it? Welcome to another edition, a special edition of the Northwest Race Report. Tonight we have a cool guest in the house. He's amazing. 60-plus years in the sport, and he's awesome. I mean, what else can I say? We have the legendary Mr. Pfau. What is going on, Flip?
Oh, Terry, thank you. Glad to be here. Glad to make people understand a little bit more maybe about karting.
Absolutely, man. Oops, what did I do there? Uh-oh. Well, you know what? I'm going to have to... Oh, there I am. No, I'm not. Uh-oh. What did I do? Well, we're going to have to try this again. It's Sunday. What do you expect, right? Oh, my goodness. That's all right. We're going to get this thing back. Here we go. And I'm going to look down here and go here. Oh, man. Hang tight, everybody. Those of you on Spreaker, thanks for tuning in. We'll get things rolling here. Let's see. Maybe this will be better anyway. Because I needed the stats. Couldn't read anything, so let's see what happens here. No, we don't want that. I'm going to go live. Here we go. Now, here we go. We are there. Hopefully it shows up now. I'm not sure why I'm not getting any. There we go. So as everybody comes back, we'll get the questions going. But we got a great guest, Mr. Pfau. That's show business, everybody. And that's how it is. You don't get redos in racing, only you do here. But that's cool. We're going to bring you the special Sunday edition with Mr. Pfau, and we're going to talk some history in karting. Mike Hill Jr., there it is. I love it. Everybody's back. Phil, first of all, man, are you surviving this? Is it Corona or Budweiser virus?
I'll tell you what. I've never been quite so bored, but I'm trying to make the best of it, Terry.
Absolutely, man. So you're probably racing your couch at home, aren't you?
No, actually, I'm laying on the top of my bed, just leaning back, enjoying the fact that we can at least have a good conversation about karting.
Man, so you're pretending you're in a lay down then.
Yeah. Again.
Yeah, again. With a pair of twin Yamahas on each side. Oh, baby. Honestly, I want to ask you right out of the gate, how important is history in our sport? I mean, to kart. I mean, I know it's important to every sport, but I mean, do you think history's pretty important in our sport?
Oh, most definitely. I mean, I think I'd probably be a different individual in karting if I didn't have all the depth. It's given me the simple understanding of how simple a go-kart was at one time, and to be able to see the growth of the sport and the development of the chassis and all the different componentry that went into making these things up, and then dividing them, into off-road dirt racing. I mean, specialized chassis for different power applications and everything. It's just become more and more refined and defined, and unless you have that depth of understanding of how simple has become complex, it's a little bit harder to understand, the depth of what this sport really offers.
Absolutely. And before we continue with our legend, Mr. Phil Pfau, I want to give a couple shout-outs. First of all, I want to give a shout-out to Stimpy's Bar and Grill up in Kent, Washington for helping out the show. They helped us get some new equipment that's going to really help us get the word out. Jared Sessler from Sessler Motorsports and, of course, Joe's Racing Products. They hooked us up with our subscription to Speedway Illustrated and CC Racer, which is a big help in getting a lot of info and different things for the show. So we appreciate those great new sponsors. So Phil, before we get going to the year 1958, give us the Phil Pfau overview. Where did all this start?
Man, it's hard to really give you a baseline on where this all started because I think to me, personally, it started with the fact that I realized I liked, even riding my bicycle, I realized just doing things with speed involved and designing and understanding all started clear back in, you go back as far as 54, 55, 56. I was one of those kids that was, never sat in one place, and ideas would formulate in my mind, and I just enjoyed staying busy. As my mom said, she says, I never worried about you because I could always hear you. And that was because I was banging on things and cutting things, and then it was a matter of understanding, fun cart chassis and yard carts, and from that point, when the sport was actually really announced, and let's go karting, and that caught my attention, and my dad bought 3 carts in 57 or 58 and wrote the check for three dual engine with A400 Clinton engines in them, and I remember him going to the bank and getting the money. It was $875 for those 3 carts with dual motors, with all the chrome, and, he bought the upholstery and whatever else. But you can see it was like having a Ferrari to me now, because that was something that lit my fuse.
Boy, I guess. Chance Freaky, Kelsey Pease, what's going on? Isaac Watson, Tony Modica from Tampa, Florida. Tampa Tony in the house. Bill Johnson, welcome. We got the legendary Phil Pfau tonight in our History of Karting edition of the Northwest Race Report. So your dad was a huge part of everything. I mean, he was a huge part in the sport, period. So you tell us about the time when you first got your cart. I mean, I think that's an awesome story.
Yeah, well, the first yard cart was put in at the end of our driveway, and I thought it was a lawnmower in the box, and I went in there and saw a steering wheel, and I knew that wasn't a lawnmower, and so we unfolded the tail end of the box and rolled that thing out, and that you can't explain it. It was an amazing moment, and we took and serviced it, and basically that was the machine that taught me a lot. Even as probably at that time I was 8 or 9 years of age, and from that point, next step was racing karts, and and then the dealership that we sustained, and the partners that my dad took on, and he merged the go-kart dealership with a bicycle and lawnmower business here in Salem, and the Pfau and Pfau Pfau, Rankin and Roner was the name of my dad's first business, and those were his two partners that were in the lawn and garden and bicycle type stuff, and the sport exploded. All I can remember is the thing that you miss by not being in it is the evolution of change. I mean, you saw so much change in such a short period of time. You had, I thought 3 carts was great, and then it became 6, 8, 10, 15, 20, and then the next thing I know, we're selling them like hula hoops. I mean, everybody wanted one, and I see a new addition going on to the business, just the warehouse, and then being a bug dealer, he became a bug distributor and built an addition on just to house all the different model of bug carts, and we handled other lines, but bug was the main one that got us started in the business. We had a choice between go-kart and bug, and I think I liked the name better at the time. Bug seemed interesting to me, and go-kart, I don't know. I probably should have taken both. I don't know, but I went with Bug, and my dad came out, and it was actually my decision. He said, "Which one do you want me to order?" And I said, "Let's get the Bugs." And so that's kind of how it all went together to begin with, Terry.
Now, and then you said you actually stopped traffic on, because there was no I-5 through Salem back then, was there?
No, there was no I-5 because when they were building I-5, I was out riding my bicycle on the dirt that they were laying out and wondering what all this is going to be. But it was a great place to ride my bike, and so that's where I was. And then the go-karts came along, and still everybody was coming down 99E, and I took the cart out when we got one of the 3 and serviced it, and I was out running around the driveway. We lucky enough to have a nice turnaround on one end or the other, and before long we absolutely stopped the traffic on what you would consider I-5 now, but it was 99, and 2 state bulls came and freed everything up, and believe it or not, the very first go-kart we sold was to that state cop.
Wow.
Excuse me just one second. I have to put my dog outside the door here. Hang on.
No problem. Wow, so that's pretty cool. So stopping traffic, now that is a huge, I mean, that just tells you right there, everybody, how big that was kind of the first, I don't know what you're going to call it, but that was the first telltale sign that this thing was going to go crazy.
Sorry, Terry.
No, it's okay, man. I was just telling everybody.
One of those interruptions.
No, I was just telling everybody that's one of those things that you knew that was the telltale sign of how big this thing was going to be.
Yeah. It. I mean, when he asked me, what was that thing you were, what caused all that? That was the cause of the effect, and I told him, they call them go-karts, and I said, these are made by Bug. And the cop, I invited him to drive the go-kart. And he says, really? And I said, yeah. He took his guns off. He took his hat off. And I remember we had the helmet I was wearing was a McCall Carrera helmet. And we had 3 sizes there because we got 3 carts for 3 kids because we had 3 boys in the family. And one of them fit him. We put a helmet on him. And he raced around the driveway for a while, just thrilled, came in and asked how much one of these cost. And next thing I know, he's pulling in the evening when he got off work, and he was the very first person we ever sold a racing go-kart to.
How much did a go-kart I'm just going to blow everybody away. How much was that first go-kart that he bought when you sold it? What was the retail price on it?
Well, you divide 3 and $875 plus a little freight. They probably add another $50 to $75 for freight for all 3 of them at the most. So I would imagine my dad probably sold them for $350 to $450. He was the type of man that when he wanted to promote something to get the name out and get the sport out, and he gave a lot and got a lot of people in it, and then when he understood the structure of what he was buying and the amount that he bought, and of course the incentives of buying 10. The thing is, these things were built on assembly lines back in those days, and to get and fulfill the orders, because it didn't take long before he was a distributor, and he did go out and set up all these dealers, and they all, the whole world was aware of go-karting at that time, and the demand was growing faster than the factories could produce them, and so you had to order a lot of carts to get on the list just to get 5, 10, 15, 20 of them, So I remember my dad putting huge orders in. At that time, we were, Bug was making Bug carts. The models were the Bug, the Cool cart, the Cad cart, the Stinger. That was the Bug family, as the Pearsons say, and we had them all. Before long, they were 1 engine, 2 engines, 3 engines, all different styles. A lot of them at that time had all American type engines, and yet there was still motorcycle engines that cropped up. There's motorcycle engines that were raced by, if you remember, Duffy Livingston raced a motorcycle engine. Chuck Balsinger raced a 250 Yamaha Twin, and so we had a lot of different types of influence, but the American engines dominated the sport. McCullough, when they came out with the Mac 10, I can still remember my first track. It was the new Salem go-kart track, probably the first one in the state of Oregon, and they opened it up, and we ended up getting like the first carts with live axles. The axles were dead axle. My first duel was dead axle. 2 motors with 2 wheels spinning, no axle, and had a stub out there just to put your wheel and sprocket and that on. But we didn't know any different. That was normal. That was good stuff then. And then, of course, the live axle came out, and we got this competition orange Bug with a brand new Mac 10 direct drive, and I sat around and watched my dad's partner drive it, and they didn't know if I was capable of hanging on to this thing. And so finally, I was only 75 pounds at that time, and I was pretty short. I was always the shortest one in any school I ever went to. Even in my senior year in high school, Terry, I wrestled the 98-pound class, and they had a hard time finding people that were as small as me, but I had a successful wrestling period there too. Being so, I proved my point to them. First match I was ever in wrestling, I pinned my man in 7 seconds. And
wow.
So then it became, the wrestling coach wanting me to wrestle, and me wanting to go drive my go-kart, and karting won out on that one.
The rest is history, as they say.
The rest is history. You got it. We all got our start someplace, but I'll tell you what, I wasn't going to turn away from it, because it was my fascination, and then to work hard to refine and understand it and everything. That's what history brings to you.
Yeah, for sure, man.
Kind of, if you weren't there, you really have to do the research and understanding to understand what took place and how it affected the sport. I was just going to say, about 58 and thereon, people that weren't in the sport, they don't realize how explosive this was, building and bringing the industry together. And
are you talking into your phone, or are you on speaker?
No, I'm talking into my phone.
Okay. Go ahead.
Can you still hear me?
Oh, yeah, I can hear you. I just want to let you know Brian Thomas just joined. How about that one?
Oh, good deal. One of my team drivers back in the day. Yeah, Brian was absolutely a fantastic driver and more so a fantastic individual. So we really got along well, had a lot of fun together, and friends to this day.
Yep. Hey, I want to let everybody know out there, if you got questions for Phil, type them in. If you got a memory, if you got anything, this isn't all official. We're just kind of here BSing about some history and whatever. So 58, we get the invention and of the go-kart, and then we move on to the 60s. The early 60s was probably still a really big time super big time for karting, right?
Yeah. By that time, it was pretty well established for what the sport was. It's had, a number of nationals leading up to that point, and refinements of the accessories and component manufacturers are understanding what it's going to take to be actually a force in the sport, because there was a tremendous turnover of people that ventured into the industry that basically came from all different types of businesses and large companies that produced other things, but branched off and had a division where they built karts.
Wow.
And they lasted a long time. Some of them didn't, but you saw so many things. It's like the one that always stuck in my mind was the Hopco cart, which became common industry. The people that produced all the torque converters. So they had a cart and it ran its period of time, and next thing I know, they're become practically or were the world's largest manufacturer of torque converters. So it led in many directions, Terry.
Wow, that's crazy cool. So what about, let's talk about, what year was, in your memory, did they have open motors back in those days, or were they all pretty much stock motors, or was it the other way around? Was everybody just allowed to kind of tinker on them and kind of do what they want and bring the fastest thing they had?
Well, as I remember, you got to remember as a little kid, but as I remember, there was 5 classes to start with in Go-Kart Club of America, and they were like A stock, A super, B stock, B super, and C class, and 100cc type motors and modified engines were all in the super class, where you could actually go in and do things to the engine. The other ones were, spec type, stock type motors, where you had McCullough's and Power Products and Homolites, and there was a lot of different types of engines that were trying to make their entry. Some did, some didn't, but I know McCullough and Power Products made their point, and then you saw the European engines starting to show their influence with the Pirella was the first one I ever saw. And a friend of mine had a Hornet Marauder lay-down cart, and he had a Pirella on it. That was like having one of the best carts you could have at that time. And then it went to, different types of sprint carts. From the classes stayed the same. I really enjoyed the simplicity of the class structure back then, because they made the sport all grow on 5 classes. I've been in it long enough that as it's grown, we've had 20 to 25 classes, run down. And personally, myself, I think that really dilutes the sport. They're trying to fill too many needs, and they need to build the classes into bigger races, bigger classes, but they seem to want to give everybody a chance and everybody its own class. And I think it's diluted the interest. I liked it back when it was simple. It just made it easier when people came in and said, "Where do I start?" And you say, "Well, we'll start you in a back 5 with this cart." They pay a little bit of money. We'd go out, and next thing you know, they're coming back buying another one. They're telling their friends, and it rolled over and over and over again, Terry. It was a real big boom.
So the boom was in the early '60s, but how about in the late '60s? What, if your memory serves you good? I mean, what do you remember about that? Did we start getting world championships then in the late '60s?
The biggest revolution, I thought, in the late '60s was when the Sidewinder kart was designed and developed and proven, with a different weight balance.
Because all the engines were in the back, right? That you ran, they sat behind the seat.
Yeah, which called for a lot of different driving styles. If you didn't lean out of the seat and basically prepare yourself for a corner, whether it was a switchback or whatever kind of chicane it was, you did this thing at high speed and you kicked the rear end out, both left, right, and you drove with a lot of throttle control and a lot of body English at that time, Terry.
Wow. That is, I mean, and it's not always the fastest way around, but it sure, I mean, it probably wasn't that day, but it's sure fun to watch even now. You know what I mean?
Well, that's why the vintage thing is the biggest thing going in karting right now, because nothing isn't used at one time or another, and if you have something old, there's a place for it, and that's why I like the vintage karting, is because it keeps the past relevant and it keeps it in front of the people, and it kind of merchandises itself between both the old and the new, and a lot of the people that get into karting, I can remember in all the shops I owned and ran, they'd come in and they say, "How come you don't have any of those go-karts with the engines hanging off the rear?" And I said, "Well, the sport developed itself as anything does in racing, and became, what's it going to take to make it a quicker lap?" And all the development went in. I believe it was Gary Emmett, when he was with Margay, introduced the first Sidewinder. Correct me if I'm wrong, but that's how I saw it. And think about it. Everybody's got a rear engine kart. All of a sudden now, everybody's got to have a Sidewinder kart. So you can just imagine how the tooling and how the change of lifestyle in karting changed too at that time, because some still liked the rear engine, and it hung around for a while before they basically went all Sidewinders as it is currently to this day.
Right. And I think too, looking at it now, I mean, one of the things that no negativity here at all, but just one of the changes, well, to some degree, it used to be, at least when we were doing it real serious, everything was based off of the Grand Nationals. So when you went to a local show or you went to a regional show, you were going there in preparation to get yourself, hopefully, those that were going to go, get yourself ready so that you would be ready to go to a Grand National event.
Yeah. They had stair-step type races there that even granted you a guaranteed start back in the first. I can remember, we had state championships, we had territorial and divisional championships, which basically gave you some sort of preference when you got to the nationals. So a lot of people were running all the different events to prepare themselves, and as you moved up the line, generally the competition got stiffer, and when you went to the nationals, you either made the grade or you didn't. To me, my first Sprint Grand National was in 1964 at Riverside, and it was a total eye-opener to me. I thinking everything is going to be a lot like it was in the Northwest, and when I went down there, I ended up finding out that you got to go a lot faster than what we did, and I think that was a telltale race, just making the main as a junior by probably the thickness of my bumper, and when I went home, I said, that's never going to happen again.
Wow.
And from that point on, I had a different mindset. I knew that aggression and preparations and putting a little more time and effort into understanding the sport and what it takes to win, and that changed. That changed me entirely. Got to get whooped to understand.
Man, Hadley Lovell in the house. Danny Flatt, what is going on? Doug Anderson, welcome to the show, you guys. Special Sunday edition. We're just kind of chilling and BSing with Phil Pfau. Don't go anywhere, Phil. I'm going to play a quick ad here, and we'll be right back.
Okay.
If you're serious about racing, you're constantly looking for an edge. A tenth here, a pound there. It's a nonstop pursuit to find a quicker way around the racetrack. See High Performance believes to beat the racetrack, you must become the racetrack. And that is the thought process behind all of their innovative speed products. From their line of Superfly bodies and wings to the latest dual disc center vane Super Brake, it's all about finding a quicker way around the racetrack. With 45 years of innovation, See High Performance is dedicated to helping racers of all skill levels find an edge. Whether it's horsepower tuning, chassis dialing, or tire science, it's their commitment to innovation that sets them apart from the rest. Innovation is not what is, it's always been about what can be. So be all you can be with the integrity, innovation, and inspiration of C High Performance. Shop online 24/7 at chiperformance.com.
What's up, race fans? This is the real deal, Chris Kidd, and you're listening to the Northwest Race Report.
So we're back. Our guest, Mr. Phil Pfau, in the house. Dude, let's talk about the Grand Nationals, though, how they used to go. You know, now it's pretty, I mean, there are teams, but it's pretty individual. Back in the day, you used to go as teams, if I'm not mistaken. Is that correct?
Well, you know, the first team I remember was the team my dad formed, you know, back in the 50s, and I still to this day don't understand how he put together such a good group of people that, you know, they honed their skills so quick and they became so good. I can still remember the Bug Scorpion and a guy by the name of Gary Devine. And, he was a force to reckon with. I can remember Ben Hunt, the owner of Caper Cart, up there, and I think it was Yakima area, and he had a gal on there called Shirley Eddy, and she was her and Kate Pearson, the two women that were probably the toughest to beat back in that day, you know. But the Caper Cart team, the Bug team, Go Kart team, Dart Kart team, you know, it was a battle until they understood that they needed to take care of business, quit racing, because I think they proved the point. And for the factories and the major entities that were in this thing, they backed off, basically started supporting the people that support them, and helped out where they could help out, and you see a lot of that even yet to today.
Wow, so these teams, you had them all over the country, right? I mean, there was some from the Midwest, some from the West, some from the East. I mean, kind of fill us in on how that, were there groups of, 10 or 20 or 30, or how did it go?
Well, when you have, let's just say back in the 60s, where, you know, Dart Kart's team with Pete Burrell, there was probably about, there was probably 6 or 8 members of the actual official Dart Kart team. Mickey Rupp being the owner, you know, he was running B Super at that time, and we had our guy out here from clear back in the days that ventured to their tracks and raced against them. You know, hometown had a lot of advantage, and the Dart Kart team was very tough to beat in their own backyard. You know, we went back there with McCullough's, and we went back with Clinton's, and I can still remember throwing the nitro at the little bushing Clinton engine we were running. I think they were maybe needleberry by that time, but it didn't blow up. But I'll tell you what, we threw everything in the kitchen sink at it, and it just kept going and going. Just a lot of great periods of different people. My dad's team was outstanding. I mean, remember the debut of the McCullough cart up in Washington, and I know by sitting in the back seat listening to my dad on the way back of McCullough's debut, they didn't have a pretty debut with our team there. We pretty much won everything there was, and didn't give them too much to write up in the magazines other than they came out with a new cart. I probably didn't do Jimmy Amani any good on that one, but great racer he was.
Brian Thomas asks, what years did you win your Duffies?
Well, and before Duffy's, the big ones, was Super Stock Light. Actually, 78 was 100 Open at Chuck Pittenger's track there at Magic Mountain. Won the 100 Open with a Bug Black Will. They were just coming out with it. This is 78. And ran a Corsair Open. Ran against Mike Manning and a number of other. I think Jeff Nelson was in there. So there was some tough boys. And at that point in time, I just came from flat track motorcycles and been on the dirt since the early 60s with everything, and motorcycle racing since 64. So I kind of did that with karting and everything. And it associated me really well because this was the first dirt national I ever went to, and I ended up winning.
Wow. And what kind of tires were you running at that event?
Well, I went to Chuck Pittenger's shop, and I said, I'm here to race at your track, Chuck. I said, what do you want me to run? And he put some turf savers all the way around my cart. He says, that's what works, Phil. And he wasn't kidding. I mean, I had an Open that was just unbelievable. It was built by Jim Petit at the time, and this guy was pretty much a scientist when it come to understanding port timing and so many factors of how to make an engine really run. And boy, I unloaded that thing, and it was a rocket. It was a 50-mile, sanctioned track, so you could really roll on the thing. And it was a night race. First time I'd really been in a big kart race again since I got off of motorcycles. And so I was quite surprised how well this thing actually worked. Took a Yamaha kart down and ran in with my practice kart and got off the Yamaha kart and got on my Black Widow with my Corsair Open.
And you had they were like Chin Sing, they were just like regular lawnmower tires, right?
Yeah, you can go buy them right now for your lawnmower or whatever garden tractor type stuff you're using. But it's amazing how they work. I mean, they were a 13-650 by 6 and 410 or a 400 by 5 on the front. Turf saver. I mean, who would think?
I know, right? I know. It's crazy.
It jacked the rear end of the cart up. We didn't have ride height back then. We didn't even know what it was, And so everybody was pretty much the same. It didn't matter if you were on an Invader or a Bug or whatever cart. That's pretty much what everybody was running in 78.
And there was certainly no prep involved, correct?
Yeah, it was a lot simpler than what they make it now.
Boy, no
now
kid.
You got to be a chemist.
Don't you? It's crazy. It's crazy.
Yeah, it's pretty funny. I mean, these guys all have their approach and way of doing it. But, I mean, as far as our prep was just to clean the dirt out and get ready for the next time. Maybe turn the tire around so you got a better biting edge on the other side, or get the razor blade out and cut a new edge, and like I did in motorcycles all the time. So, doing all different types of things. It's amazing how so much of it applies in each, and that's where experience came in. It was just making the application of understanding so much easier.
Yeah, for sure, man. So you won your first one in 78 at Indian Dunes. Then your next one was a little bit later on, right? Was it 1981?
Well, the thing with me, and the reason why I didn't go to a dozen more nationals and do it is I was basically in in the karting business, and being in the karting business and having a successful business and building a business, I had a lot of priorities for me. And at that time, in '78, I was married and had a baby that went down with me to the nationals at Magic Mountain there, and my baby sat in its little cradle type thing and was on top of the motorhome. And I was spitting mud over the top of the fence. And
Wow.
land in his lap on in the cradle. And next thing I know, when I'm coming in, my wife said, "Boy," she said, your little boy loves seeing you come around the corner and flipping that dirt. When it hit him, it didn't make him cry. He would just laugh." So those are one of the moments you don't forget.
No, man, that's awesome. So your second Duffy was in 1981, correct, at Medford?
Yeah, Medford. That was super stock light with another blueprinted Corsair, control type engine.
Yeah. A lot of people used to think that was an open motor, just so everybody knows.
It wasn't far behind. It was one of the first motors that when Jim brought the engine to me, he said, "This is the one we want to run." The computers were coming in, and I can remember him said he did the math and had a friend down at Oregon State. They had a whole computer bank down there, and they fed a whole bunch of figures and formulas and everything into it. Believe it or not, I never even got to practice with the motor or break it in or anything. I broke it in at the National in '81, and I knew I was fast. I was running the Burco clutch, and Bob Burris was there. He said, "If that thing goes the way it sounds," he says, "you're going to have a good National." I didn't really know what that meant, but I'll tell you what, I had Vince Palaio.
Well, let's see. You had Palaio, you had Amick, Kevin Maraglio, Amick. Was Ron Amick running Superstar? No Amick. Well, you had
I had him in Expert One. I think it was Expert One, where with Scott Pruitt and Amick were running that, and Scott Selvin was there also.
Yeah.
But in the race came down to Shannon Rogers was in there for a while, and we had there was 50-some entries for Super Stock Light.
God alone, just that one class. Isn't that crazy?
Yeah, I had a full field of coming down 28, I think, in the complete class, and I didn't time in fast time. Kevin sat on the pole. I was just a few hundredths away from him, but ended up winning it. Third heat, had a little help from my friend Vince, and we kind of buddied up on that one, and kept Kevin Maraglio at bay, and it worked out real good.
Right.
I know it earned me a new Emmy card. I remember that. Very rewarded me with a brand new Emmy card after winning that one. So
yeah, man. You bought a lot of stuff from Emick, right? Because I know we were pretty successful with that laydown we got from them too, as well.
Oh yeah, I hated to pull away from Bug at that time. They gave me a new Bug Super Sprint. It was kind of a debut, and I was a second slower with the Bug Super Sprint, and Jerry wanted me to try the Emick, and he said, "You'll do well." He said, "This thing really works here." And he was I was a second faster on the Emick than I was on the Bug. I can still remember talking to Faye and Bud Evans, and when they showed up, maybe it was John Pierce. They showed up, and I told them, I said I had to table that one and go with the Emmy cart just because of the times. The Emmy cart just seemed to work, and loved that track better. And I'm sure glad I won it, because I would have looked awful stupid to them if I wouldn't have.
Right. Wow, man. So Now, a lot of people. I mean, a lot of people know you. I mean, obviously, your claim to fame was sprinting, but then in the in your later years, you did. You know what? I still I still remember your first road race at PIR in that old Bug. It had the old aluminum tanks on it, and you look like a duck out of water.
Well, after a long time, I mean, I hadn't been in road racing, actually road racing, since clear back in the '60s, where they were taking sprint carts and cutting the back of the seat and laying it back and hanging the motor out the back and getting everything down as low as you can, and then all the big side tanks was the newest thing. The races were long back then. They weren't just 30-minute type sprints. They were an hour-long race, and maybe even longer than that at the start. I still remember it clear up to an hour and a half. So that's why they called them enduro. They didn't call them a road race. They called them enduro.
Yeah.
You actually did pit stops, and you ran methanol, and you had big enough tanks that you still had to stop and take. I can remember 2820 benders. I mean, they make so much time out there, and then they were pulling in, and two guys on each side pouring fuel in two tanks and cutting them loose. Remember, the first one I really remember was Vancouver, up in Canada, and
that was up at Westwood.
Yeah, Westwood, and then Seattle International, which was up there by Kent, and well, I'll tell you what, the who's who made their self known at that racetrack. Is between that and Riverside, and some of the other races up and down the coast. It was very fierce, very, very competitive. I remember in the dual class, when you look down the straightaway, you see just a wave of just groups and groups of duels coming down the straightaway, and they didn't have mufflers on either. I mean, they were pretty open header, so-called mufflers of what you consider mufflers back in that day. And,
right.
Just a totally different setup, but boy, they flew, and they stayed together as long as they knew how to put them together.
Right. Well, let's kind of rewind back a little bit, because I want some people to know that your dad, he invented the AAA muffler, basically. Is that correct?
Yeah, I think the people that have been in the sport a long time recognize how quiet this muffler was, and it ended up, in my estimation, being probably the first expansion chamber that wasn't noted as being an expansion chamber till maybe later, but it brought the DB level of those engines down to the point we got ourselves out of trouble, and noise was not really the factor anymore. But, you take 1, 2, 3 engine type setup carts with pretty unrestricted exhaust assemblies, and you have a big field to a full field of those things. When they drop the hammer, I mean, it's alcohol and burning rubber and noise that probably sound like a dragster this day and age when they drop the hammer.
Wow. That's crazy. So now, you told me the story of your dad buying 10 Voight basketball mold things, right?
Well, he went to Voight and told him what he wanted. He wanted to take him and buy knobby tires, grind them all off, and those would be the casings. And I guess maybe he sent something to them, and they fitted mold. And lo and behold, we were capping tires, and what my dad called our muffler and the tires were AAA tires and AAA mufflers. And
wow,
and that's what it was noted at that time. They were all more, they weren't wide type tires. They were, because we ran more beveled type tires. We ran narrower ones at the front, and I think probably as wide as as a 600 was probably as wide as you would see, or even a 2020 back then.
Right.
You know, then the game started going for different compounds, and you know, the testing came in for which tire worked. I mean, there was so many different styles that were made all over at that time. So every portion of the cart became an industry of itself. Whether you were into building accessories, whether you were into building carts or frames or engines or whatever, that's what made the whole sport thrive. If there was a need, somebody was developing it or building it.
Dude, that's crazy cool. So,
yeah.
are racers in this day and age, or at least karters, that you, because you know the sport so well, but are they spoiled?
Well, you know, that's a good question. I mean, you can't penalize them for what they don't know, but you've got to support them if they want to know more about it, you know. And they're in a computer phase. I never was. I never punched one button on a computer in my whole career, and still don't.
And still don't
to this day. Other than if I wouldn't have this phone, I wouldn't have anything to push. But no, you know, I learned mine by relating feel and sensation and sound, understanding and making mistakes and having successes here. The good old hard school, you know, trial and tribulation and whatever. But you know, they nowadays with the new way of learning and new way of application and whatever, hey, kudos to them. If it works for them, that's kind of the way the sport has gone, and that's the way people learn now, because it's a whole different phase. But when you go back in time, there was a lot of people that accomplished a lot of the same things that they're trying to accomplish, and it sure wasn't done with a computer.
Right. Now, I can remember four-strokes were, boy, it took a while for the sport to actually welcome them in like they have today. What are your thoughts like on the new 206 and stuff like that?
Oh, I think stability on something like that is kind of like looking what the stability of the Yamaha engine did in '77. You know, I mean, you have a good tight tech, you have parity and the engine, and then the development of the chassis and the experience of the driver all becomes a competition that hopefully you don't throw a lot of money at it. You put time into understanding the development of your own skills, because you can only spend so much money on a go-kart, and then you're throwing it away, and it still doesn't make you win, because when you get in the clinches, you got to understand how to handle it and what to do, and you got to do it in a millisecond, you know. And if it doesn't work that way, then you need to go back and do your homework. But to evaluate what these drivers have now to go out and do the job, and they've got Ferraris comparison to our old Model A's, and as we develop the sport, they have what is known as the circumstances of what it came to, and I hope we appreciate the depth of what and the people that put a lot into this sport before they ever realized it probably existed.
Right. So now, with your decades and decades and decades in the sport, what is it that you see now that we need to be doing to get it? I mean, are we ever going to see karting in its heyday like we saw in the late '60s and in the late '70s, early '80s, and I guess even really in the '90s there when it was still booming pretty good? Will we ever see that again?
I think it's gone in different phases, and it's developed really well. I mean, people, if they're influenced by shifting, maybe they had a motorcycle or something, or they just like the sound of shifter carts and this type of thing, you get that segment of the population that loves to bang gears and understand the. I mean, that's very, very, very technical when you get into being good in one of those things, because there, one engine with one speed and the simplicity of what we learned. You add 6 gears to it, and you've got a whole different machine there, and you've got a whole different applications of loads and handling characteristics and everything else. And that's why you saw, or you've seen over the years, how the chassis development had to be stiffened up, had to be built in different ways. The center of gravity had to be very important to keep the weight down, and yet offer the features that was going to make one driver, over another driver. Some like a stiff chassis, some like a flexier chassis. Torsion bars came in. We didn't have no torsion bar back then. Maybe a frame broke, and that gave us some additional flex. But as it is now, they got all the tools. They've got everything. I mean, you can get as good as you want if you've got the talent and you've got the time to apply yourself. You just have to have priorities and understand what it is you want out of go-karting. If it's a stepping stone into other forms of racing, then there isn't another vehicle that you can use that basically gets you orientated and gets you prepped and ready for whatever type of car or outlaw car or Indy cars, if that's your desire all the way. I mean, I've had workings with practically all those types of people that have used it with stepping stones to put them where they finally ended up and wanted to be in the first place. But they came in and bought a go-kart because they knew that they had to get associated with speed and centrifugal force and weight and handling and braking and everything else that goes into making a complete driver. There's no excuses when you get up to that level.
Absolutely. So I'm gonna now. I've got 6 questions, and these are just for fun. I don't want you to think. I don't want you to think about it. I just want you to answer the first thing that comes to your mind. Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Bridgestone or Goodyear?
Different period altogether.
Bridgestone or Goodyear?
Which one?
You got to just pick one or the other. You just got to pick one or the other.
Bridgestone.
Burco or Horseman?
For me, Burco.
Gas or Alky?
Alcohol.
35 or 219?
219.
Mako or Hartman?
Depending on the application, both of them are great. You can't draw a line on that. I have to take a pass. They were both great pipes.
Tony or Emick?
Say that again.
Tony Kart or Emick Kart?
Different period. I mean,
Emick. I'm gonna answer for you. Emick.
Emick was a great kart, especially in the period that it was manufactured. Made incredible success with the frames that they came out, and obviously Tony Kart is carrying it on now.
So let me ask you, coming off of 4 to the flag for the Grand Nationals in Superstock Light, who would win? Fred Flintstone or George Jetson?
Oh, yeah. Okay. Is this a trick question?
No. Who would you pick?
Mr. Jetson.
And why?
Just the name alone sounds quicker. If you live back in that area where you watch the Flintstones, you'd know why.
Dude, we're out of time. I want to thank you for being my guest tonight. You were awesome. And I hope
thank you.
I hope everybody enjoyed it. We'll be back. Well, I'm going to try to do this on these Sundays just to try to get everybody's mind off of the coronavirus. You know what I mean?
yeah, hopefully they have a little bit more information to form a different frame of mind of looking at things. We look at them every which way, upside down and down the other, back in the point when we didn't have the sophistication that they have now, and maybe another 10, 20, 30 years, they'll look back at this period and think that they're where we were back then. So it all revolves, it all evolves, and that's what makes up the sport of karting.
Dude, thank you so much for being my guest. We'll be in touch.
Thank you.
And maybe we'll do part 2 of this, huh?
Oh, anytime, Terry, that you got the time, give me a buzz. We'll line it up. Like I said, I enjoy, obviously, talking about the sport, and I've lived it my whole life, as well as other things. And anytime Northwest Race Report wants me, I'm there.
Right on, Phil. Thank you, man. We'll talk to you soon, okay?
You bet.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Phil Pfau, everybody. What a guy. I can honestly say everything I know I learned from that man. I just want to let you guys know, we just did this on a Sunday just to try to get everybody's mind off this virus, and hopefully you enjoyed it. If you got somebody special that wants to get on a Sunday, man, let me know. Maybe I'll try to get Chris C. on here next week so we can talk a little more history of karting, or maybe I'll get Jason Gibb on. I don't know. We just give me some guys if you want. Hit us up on Facebook. You can hit up the loader, or you can hit up myself on Facebook. Tomorrow night, Late Model Monday, we're going to be from 7 to 8. We got a couple great guests. We've got Adam Nelson from Meridian Speedway, and we've also got the great Doug Hobbs from Evergreen. So we're going to be seeing what's going on with Evergreen Speedway and Meridian. Hope you enjoyed the show tonight. I know, it was kind of, we just kind of winged it. So hopefully it was an hour that you could, take your mind off of this virus. Brian Thomas, thank you, man. I appreciate it. And we're going to try to do this. It's just my way of giving back because I love you guys and I love the support of the show. And I just appreciate you guys so much. So we'll see you tomorrow night, 7 to 8. We'll be on Late Model Monday. Got the great Doug Hobbs and Adam Nelson going to be in the house. So until then, peace. Love you guys. Well, another show in the books. You are the reason we're here. We hope you'll tune in next week for another Winning Wednesday here on the Northwest Race Report.
Lippy here. If you like tonight's show or any of our shows, please like and share on Facebook. And don't forget to stop by TerryBridgesRacing.com. Subscribe so you don't miss any of our shows.